Okay, it looks like we got a few more that joined up. Unless you think there's anyone else that should be missing, I can get started. Um, so for those of you who don't know, my name is Jody Simpson, and I'm one of the programmers behind the CalServe Gateway. Um, just a short little background. The CalServe Gateway is an online interface for managing and analyzing surveillance and control data related to mosquitoes and arboviruses. Um, we provide a data entry interface that individual mosquito control agencies can use to import their data and provide tools to analyze and view that data, and essentially create a unified interface to collect data so that it can be analyzed more easily. One of the benefits of this is that by inputting data into the gateway, overview state agencies can get easy access to that data without having to go to each agency and ask for the data and then get it in a variety of formats. It's all unified in one format. Um, so New Jersey has, I guess, decided to start using the gateway to collect their data, and we've gone through and tried to import the previous data that was sent to us, but we ran into a few issues last week. So there's data. We're working with the sandbox right now, and the data is in there, but there's a few things that we need to clean up before we can actually move it to the live gateway. Also, for this webinar, I'm going to be using the sandbox, which I think a lot of you have already contacted me about, but the sandbox is a copy of the gateway, where we don't have to worry about whether or not we mess up data or anything, because it's wiped every week. Well, that's usually the plan. So getting started, the first thing that most people will need to do once they are given access to the gateway is to go to their agency and define their users. So most of the time, an agency will contact, or I've been contacted and add that agency to the gateway, and that's done through what's called an agency manager account. So every agency should have at least one agency manager. That person does not necessarily have to be the manager of that place, but just the point person that is going to run the data into the gateway. From there, each agency will typically control their own users. That way you can be ensured that the people accessing the data that you put into the gateway are only the people that you are allowing to do so. So this is the user management page. And in order to add a new user, an agency manager account will be required. I created a test one for the purposes of this webinar. But otherwise, you would go to Settings, My Agency, and then User Management. And this button at the top here, Add New User, will allow you to enter in new user information. The required fields are username and password, and then an email address. In this section here, you would define the login type. For a regular agency, the types are user, which is anyone that can add or view data. View only is allowed to view the data. And then you can create additional agency manager accounts, which would be able to access this page and create other users. Sometimes agencies have multiple people that have an agency manager account. One of the important things is that any person that is going to add data to the gateway should do so through their own individual account. that allows you to track who entered what data, and also each account in the gateway can only log in by one computer at a time. So if someone logs into that same account, the previous person will be logged out. Additionally, some of the things that have come up recently are just to ensure that the username that you enter is case sensitive. So I'm not sure if that was part of some of the issues that people were having with user accounts. Additionally, at the bottom, if you would like, you can grant access to your data to other agencies throughout the state, so you can help collaborate with each other and just view each other's data. That's done through this non-agency users section. And you would type in the person that you would like to add and just click grant. And once you do so, it'll give you what level of access you want to grant that person. Another overlooked thing in the gateway is the My Account settings. Under personal information, you can define your first and last name, but the important thing that I want to highlight here is these contact preferences. The gateway sends out several different types of notifications, such as when you send pool samples to the lab or test results get entered into the lab. So in order to receive those results, you would have to adjust your preferences accordingly to receive those notifications. For New Jersey, the only two that would be applicable would be arthropod delivery notification, which is when a mosquito sample is received by the lab, and then arthropod result notification, which is when a test result is entered by the lab. Another place that should be highlighted is the account preferences. Here you can define your preferred format for dates and times. This is important because there's a lot of forms on the website that have data entry locations, and just in case you don't prefer the year, month, date format, you can adjust that here. Whatever your setting is you have to use that throughout your data, but it's normalized once it goes into the database. So the very first section that has to be addressed to input data is your collection site locations. Sites are essentially trap locations throughout your district that are bookmarks to that location, so you don't have to constantly enter in latitude, longitude. So if we click here, these are listings of sites that were for the test data that we have for Atlantic County. So if we go into one, so each site is defined by an 8-digit numeric code. We don't have any types of rules for these codes other than they just have to be unique within your agency. So we have adapted your previous codes that had incorporated the municipality and then a serial number, and then the agency code. So because the agency is embedded into it, we've omitted that and just built in the municipality with the serial number. But you can follow whatever format you like for your agency. There's no restrictions within the gateway other than they have to be numeric and they have to be 8 digits. If they're less than 8 digits, it'll automatically zero fill them for you. The site name is a field that is not required, but it's very helpful to help you identify the site in a more human readable format. These two fields in our site entry forms throughout the gateway are text searchable. So whatever you type into the code and to the site name will be searchable once later on. So it's highly recommended that you put something that is easy to remember for yourself. The next section is the coordinates. If you are using GPS devices, you can directly input the latitude, longitude. These other tabs are for other formats, such as degrees, minutes, seconds, or degrees, minutes. And then to aid things, we have the Google map that you can just click on and define the exact location. On the Google map, there's a geocode box where you can type in the address if you like. And once you type in the address, when you click geocode, it will move the site to that location. Coordinate precision this is mostly for older data where you're not quite sure that the site was actually exactly at that latitude, longitude. So you can define how exact that coordinate was. By default, it'll start at exact, but since this data we're not sure if it was entered in as unknown. And then you can define you don't have to. It's not required to define the address, but I mean it can help help identify your data if you enter it in as complete as possible. So you can enter in your address. Once an address is entered, there'll be a geocode button that pops up here. And that will find that location for you automatically. And then the rest of the address. Surroundings is just to help identify the data. This is helpful when it's analyzed in the future. So this is not a required field. Population classification is also for analysis later on. And then if you have any comments. The way that the sites work in the gateway is that sometimes agencies will use a certain code at a certain place, and then something happens where people decide, oh, I want to use that code somewhere else. That's what this this box is for. So if you found out that you had the wrong latitude, longitude for a site code, and it was always been wrong, you can check this box and make the correct changes, and it will go through all of the data associated with that site, like any collections or any pools that were collected from that site, and update them to the correct location. Otherwise, if you decide I wanted, like up until 1999, I wanted the site code to be at one location, but then going into 2000 and forward, I want it to be at a different location. You can make those changes, and this will create a new site with that site code and then turn off the previous site. And any of the data tables in the gateway, when they're in this format, you can click on any of the field names and sort by them, or you can search if in case you have a lot of data and you're just looking for a certain thing. So any of these, it'll search on any of these text fields. So the next area I would like to go over is the surveillance area, which is titled Arthropod. So the first thing I'd like to highlight is in the configuration area under trap types. So these are the trap types that we have within the gateway. If you find that there's another trap that you use quite often and it's not on this list, please let us know, and I can easily add it to this list. Because a lot of these trap types might not be applicable to you, we have it so that each agency can define the types of traps that they use. So by selecting the ones that are applicable to you, they'll show up in the dropdown, and then you can ignore all the rest. Any of these traps that are listed as saying they're a count trap or a presence absent trap. These allow you to define just a true false, whether or not you found that mosquito, rather than give a specific count. So we've added these in response to how we've had to search for Aedes aegypti within California. So they may or may not be applicable to you, but all the other trap types will give you a number field that you can enter in the results to. So once you define all that, you can enter in trapping data, which is under arthropods, abundance, and new collection. The trap types, as I just went over, are the ones defined in that on the configuration page. This is the lures as a new field that we've added recently. If you want to specify what type of lure was used in the trap, otherwise you can specify none, or unspecified is for if you don't know. The lures you can hold down select or control or command and select multiple lures. The exception is that none and unspecified have to be unique. So you'll get an error message if you try to define more than one. The collection date, if you click this, a little calendar will pop up and automatically input into the date format of your preference. Otherwise, you have to match that format. The number of traps, in case you select multiple traps at that location. The number of trap nights for certain traps that are left, like say a week, you would define the number of nights and you would use the date as the date you picked it up. So if you left trap for a week, you'd select 7 and then the pickup date. So if you picked it up on Friday. The traps at site starts as a drop down, but you can always type in any of the site code. And then, like I said, if you define the name as something, you can search by the name. Once you select the site, you can verify on the map that that's the one that you meant to select. Additionally, there's cases when people will set a trap in someone's backyard and it's not someplace that they're trapped regularly, but they'll just collect there one time. Every agency has a 0 code that they can select. And by selecting the 0 code, you are given a marker that you can move around and define at just any location, and it will record the collection there without creating a site. And in case you don't know the latitude, longitude, or not exactly sure where it's on the map, you can geocode it and it will move the marker to that location. You can define a coordinate precision just like on the sites, who collected the trap. If the trap ran with no problems, this box should be checked. Otherwise, if, say, maybe you found it was dumped out when you collected it, but you still want to record the trap information, you uncheck that box and it will say that that data had some issues. This table down below is where we would define the exact species collected. And this will text search as use types information in. And I believe we went over and got all of the mosquitoes applicable to New Jersey, but in case there's any missing, just please let me know. On the table, it looks a little complex here, but so the M is for male, and the F mixed is if you don't know whether they were unfed, blood-fed, or gravid. Most of the time, people are just entering in the number of mosquitoes under females mixed, but we do have specific data that records the exact unfed, blood-fed, and gravid. So if you put in results there, it won't allow you to define mixed because you said you know exactly what type of females you have. And then unknown, eggs, larvae, and pupae. The KDR tubes area is not applicable to New Jersey. This is California specific testing that the California Department of Public Health does. And then if you wanted to create testing samples from this collection, you could do so under the pools dropdown or the pools box. You would define the number, just the pool number, which is just an identifier for you. And then if it was, maybe you created the pool sample from multiple locations, you can define the other locations here, and then which species that you are creating the sample from. This does not actually check that you use the same exact species defined in the collection, but generally you would say, I'm gonna use the 35 females that I collected from this trap. And so if we do this, well, I already used that one. And once you're good with everything, if you click add collection, okay, that saved it. And then we can go into collection management, verify. I did that last week. And you can see that there. And if you want to go back in and change any of the data, click the edit button. You can go through and just verify everything looks as you expect it. On the right here, there's information that can be helpful. It'll show you the pool numbers for the number that you define. So it'll show you the ones that you've already, that are available for you to use. So these are the open ones, and these are the ones that I've already used. And the pool numbers have to be just a numeric number, and they have to be unique for that agency for that year. So you can reuse a number. Generally what our California agencies do is they'll start at pool number 1 and then just increment them from there. But if you have another type of system, you're welcome to use that. And then the last collection number that I entered, it'll show the last 5 collection numbers that I entered, just in case you're like, because if you're entering in a lot of sheets, you would just hit save, and it gives you another blank form. And then just to identify where you are at. So you saw me create a pool that was linked to that collection. Additionally, if you don't have the trapping information, you can just create a pool without specifying the trap. It follows mostly the same rules as that box at the bottom. So just has to be a unique number for that agency in that year. And then you can define the site code. This is a little bit more, like you can't define a custom location using this, so that has to be at a predefined trapping location. If you have other traps that you collected it from, you can add those here. Trap type, lures, collection date. Oops. And then this comment box if you want to note any comments about this pool. Once you enter in a row, another row automatically appears just to help you if you're entering in data and tabbing through each field. On our tables on the left side here, you can click on them and say you can either copy a row if you wanted to duplicate it, or if you decided, if you put in a bunch of rows and you decided this one was not what I wanted, you can delete one. And then once you're done entering in all the pools, you click Add Pools, and it will show up under Pool Management. Okay. So once you've collected all those pools, the gateway has a nifty little system so that you can send these to your state-defined lab. In the case of New Jersey, I guess you have, well, I don't know what their name is. The FEL and let's see what in Cape May. So once you've created the pools, you can automatically, we have a system in here that you can send them off to your lab and define what tests you want done on those pools. So that would be under test, so arthropod pools, and then testing, and then new submission. So under new submission, you will see the 2 labs that apply to New Jersey. In case you always send your pools to one particular lab, you can click under, there's a link to it here, but it's under config and then lab preference, and you can define the lab that you generally send most of your pools to. So click on the button and it automatically saves it. And then the next time you go to that page, it will have that pre-selected for you. And so these are the pools that were collected and not tested within the last, however many days that you want to define. And here you select the testing panels that you want to have them tested for. So West Nile virus, if you mouse over them, they'll show you what exactly they are. These are defined by the labs themselves. And then if there's a box up here, if you have multiple pools listed, you can click this box to select all. Some pools don't have that box because they're not generally tested en masse like that. And once you define all the pools you want to send for testing and the tests that you want to order, you would click on Create New Submission, and it'll give you a message that says that the pool submission was created. The ID is number 2, and clicking here will give you essentially a packing list to print out and include with those samples. So everything is pre-filled for you. If you have your phone number defined in the gateway, that will show up here, your username, and then your email. And so you don't have to put any extra information. It's all created for you automatically. Click the print button; it'll print out for you. And then under submission management, you can look at the pools the testing groups that you've created. And then under labels, this will allow you to print out on Avery 05418 labels. So if you go through this, so these are the labels on the sheet, and it will automatically print out the pool numbers for you onto those labels, so you can affix them to the test tubes that they're sent in. I think your labs will have to define the exact process that you need to follow for this, but that's there for your convenience. And if you needed to print out that sheet from that previous page, this print button will give you access to that sheet, the packing slip. So once you create these groups and you would package them up and send them off to the lab, I've already simulated this process with this submission. And so on the lab end, they would receive the sample, and when they click the box that they got it, you'll get an email going back to you saying that they received it. Let's see, I should have had that ready. The email looks a little bit like this, where if you're listed on, if you set your preferences to receive that email, It will go out to you telling you that that the testing lab received it, and once they enter in the test results, you'll get another email that says that they got the test results entered in for you. It looks something like this, where it gives you a link to tell you how to access it directly. Otherwise, you can click on Arthropod and then Pools and then Test Results. And so these are the test results that, this is the pool that we just created, and this is the one that I created ahead of time and entered in test results for. I marked it positive for West Nile, so that's why it shows up in red. And then on the side, you can get a quick summary of what mosquitoes you had, the species, and the virus they tested positive for. And if you want to look at the individual results, this shows you the pool information, and then this is the test result information entered by the lab. There could be multiple results here, and you would see each result. Some pools will be tested for multiple viruses, and so each virus that it's tested for will show up here with the result. And if you want to see the CT score, if the lab enters it, it'll show up here. So I'm not sure. So in if New Jersey, if your agencies are allowed to test results themselves. In California, we have a central testing lab located at UC Davis, but state agencies are also allowed to enter in their own test results. So they don't have a specific lab module like I described, but they can go through and go to new test results and enter in exactly what they found. So you would enter in an existing pool number, the test date, the method used, and what the test results are. Just in case that if you have your own in-house testing lab and that's allowed by your state as a whole, then this is how you would enter in those results. So that's the main section of data entry for the gateway. One of the benefits of this is that it's helpful for the agencies to put the data in through the gateway, because it makes it a lot easier for your state agency to get those results and to respond to those results quickly. Additionally, we wanted to provide other benefits for an agency to enter in their data. So we have some calculators that will help you get more insight to your collection information. So once you've entered in trapping results and pool testing results, that will give you some information through the abundance anomaly calculator. So the abundance anomaly deals with trapping numbers. At the top, if you have access to your peer agencies, you can include their results here. Otherwise, just leave it unselected. Select the year you want to get results for, and then the interval. In this section, this is looks like a little like the maps that we've shown previously, but we allow agencies to create their own polygons that they can run these calculators on. And there's also some predefined polygons for your state. So this would be the county borders. So if you wanted to see all testing results within that specific boundary, you could click that. Otherwise, if you just want to get all the information that you've entered, you don't have to enter a spatial filter. Additionally, you can draw your own shape on the map. So that will show you all the collection results that happen within that polygon. And you can actually add multiple polygons if you wanted. You can also create polygons that get saved in here. So some places, some agencies have specific shapes where they just want to run numbers, say on a park or a city block. You can define those yourselves within the agency. I want to get rid of these. Down below, we have selections for species and species groups. If you want to drill down the data to even further, these boxes that say treat each selected species independently will split up the results by those species. Same thing with features and agencies. So it will take all the results for all those agencies and then split them up. And then the sex condition that we defined on the trapping table, the trap types, and then which type of mean you want to calculate for. Once you click calculate, there's not a lot of data in there, so it came back really fast. Shows you the data table at the bottom. You can download this as a spreadsheet by clicking download calculation. Most of the time people will graph it, and because there's not a lot of data, nothing really showed up in the graph. Let's see. But on the graph, they will show you a 5-year mean and all the years included. And then these will let you click off the graphs that show up. Let's see. So that's the abundance anomaly calculator. And then there's the pool infection rate calculator. So this is based on positive pools. Many of the same filters as above. You can select by species or sex condition or the trap type found, and then the target virus. Let's see. I don't think it's gonna. So yeah, it's not gonna graph because there's not enough information in there to create a proper graph. Let's see. Let me do something real quick. Okay. Oops. Okay. Oops. So this is what the abundance anomaly graphs would normally look like. And so it gives you the year selected, which is 2018, and then the previous 5-year mean. And then you can see the numbers that created those results. A lot of times our agencies are using these for board packets to present. And then the risk assessment calculator is not applicable to New Jersey. This is based on the California risk assessment plan, which it takes into account California climate data, which we don't currently have for New Jersey. So so that won't show up for you. But so the vector index calculator is a combination of the abundance anomaly calculator and the infection rate calculator. So you can click your agency, the year, the time interval breakdown, and then so oops. I think, oh, that there's not an updated graph there. Okay. So this gives you the last 5 years of risk index. Additionally, when you put your data into the gateway, it's also mappable on the CalSurv mapping website. So this is a set of the historical data for New Jersey that we collected. It ends up being positive West Nile mosquitoes. We're going to, once we get the data all imported correctly, we'll also have viruses that are more applicable to New Jersey, such as Eastern equine on this list. But there's not a separate, the mapping website is for all of the CalSurv data. So it includes New Jersey, Utah, and all of California's data. So this ends up showing all of the positive mosquito pools that were entered into the gateway for a specified time range. There's time sliders here, so you can go back and gather more data. We don't have data beyond 2016 for New Jersey, so that won't show up. But if you were to look at California's data, you'd see graphs going all the way back to 2003. On the map, if you click on any of the locations, you'll get a graph for that, what ends up being the township in New Jersey. And then you can highlight over these and see how many pools were positive for that time period. Another interesting feature of this is that you can, my mouse is too big. You can draw a polygon on the map and graph the data that is contained within that polygon. And so in case you just wanted to see a certain area, you can draw that polygon on the map. The dots on this map, because there's a bit of concern about having this data be public, the locations are randomized slightly. So if you zoom in and you got all the way to the street level, they don't point exactly to where you said that trap was. This is to help protect the data a little bit. So there's a slight bit of noise for each dot. Additionally, so you can select these on and off when we get the other viruses added for New Jersey. You can further define the map, and then say you wanted to present for a map for your area, either as a board packet or you just want to have it bookmarked or show it on your website. You can click the share button here, and you can either download the map as an image, download this chart as an image. If you copy the link, you can, it will give you a URL that you can type in and automatically get back to the same exact map that you were looking at. Or if you click on the embed code, you can embed that into your online website if you have one. So these are some of the incentives that we're trying to give agencies to put the effort to put their data into the gateway. One of the things that we've always liked to stress with the gateway is that the data that you input into the gateway is your data, even though you put it into the gateway. We don't, we're not trying to claim ownership or anything, and it's still your data to control as you see fit. So because of that, we allow you to get the data back out of the gateway if you wanted through CSV export. So you could go through and you can filter it down if you want, but any of the data you put into the gateway, you can get it right back out. And what we've been working through now to get your data in is through the data import. So we allow the data to be imported through a spreadsheet. On the right-hand side here under import rules, if you click this link, it will give you, well, it's not on the sandbox. It will give you a spreadsheet that will tell you how to format your data in Excel in order to import it into the gateway. So each section has the rules defined here, or if you want to just work off of a sample sheet, all the fields are at the top and you can just you can pencil in your own data and then it will upload right into the gateway and you don't have to go with the data entry if that's your preferred method. Additionally, we have what are called web services or an API. So some agencies have their own in-house software that they use, and by using the web services or the API, they allow that software to communicate directly with the gateway to either import or export data. So if, say, you had your own in-house software that allowed you to, a mobile app, so you would put it into your mobile app, it would go into their system, and they would automatically send it through the API into the gateway. So all the information is here on how to set that up. If you, I won't go into that here, but if you are interested in that, you can just shoot me an email or give me a call and I will help you out with that. So the next two sections, I'm not quite positive if you guys are going to go into it, but I'll briefly cover it, is the these are the pesticide applications. Under pesticides, in order to start, you need to go through the configuration and define the equipment that you're going to apply with, which is under equipment. The main thing that we care about is just some kind of identifier that you're going to use, which we call a code. If you want to track any other fields, you can input that here. Some agencies will actually collect the serial numbers of the equipment they use, but it'll just be an identifier. Then the people in your agency that would be applying that data, so their name and then a certification number. And then under mixes, so we have the pesticides applied, oftentimes that they're applied as a mix of a product and like water. So you would input just an identifier for that mix here. And then the product, this is a searchable database of products. So I don't really know what to search for. So, but if you just type in a little bit of the information of the product, it will, you can select it here, how much is going into your mix. So, and then what diluent you're going to use if it's applicable. So just spitballing here, create the mix. And then, so under application and sources, sources are similar to sites, but for pesticide applications. So it's much of the same interface. You can define your own code format that you want, the address, whether it's a waters of the US. And so if you check this box, you can filter the applications by waters of the US in case you guys have to do reporting to the federal government on pesticide applications to the waters of the US. You can specify the coordinates. This is where it differs from the sites a little bit, because you can a source can either be a point or they can be defined as a shape, and then or they can be defined as a line in case of like if you were going to apply pesticide along a river. And so once you define all that, you can click save, and after you do all that, you'll be ready to enter in the application data. So you would select the source here. I don't have any sources entered. The purpose, the technicians from what you defined, the equipment, the mix, how much of that mix that you applied. And so you can say what you applied and what unit that you applied, what the area that you applied to, the start date and time of the apparatus if you want to get that defined, and then the end time, and you click save. So lastly, there's some resistance tools that you can use in here. The main one that we would be discussing is bottle bioassays. So if you guys run bottle bioassay tests, you can enter in those results here. So this is essentially like a bottle bioassay worksheet that you can fill out. You can name the test, material used, and if there was a synergist or not, the diagnostic dose, the lot number, the control mortality for the bottles that you entered in with no pesticide, who tested it, and then down below, this gives you the time worksheet that you could fill out, where you define the species, whether it was a colony mosquito or a field collected mosquito. In the case of a field collected mosquito, you can define exactly where you collected it from and what generation it was. Otherwise, a colony in California, we have certain well-known colonies that you could type in here, and then fill out. You can fill out either the alive or dead at each time interval. If you want to delete some of these intervals, you can, or if you want to add additional minutes, they're editable on the side. And then if you wanted to add multiple bottles to test, so you could go through and enter in all that information. And then once you entered all of that information in, let's see. You would see all of the other results entered in for your state, so you could compare your results versus other people's results. So you can select the bottle bioassay test that you want to graph, and And then once you have them selected down here, if you click calculate, it will output the results for those tests, and then you can graph the data. Okay, so I was looking over my my outline for this, and that concludes everything I wanted to go over. I can take any questions if you have any. Everyone is muted, so if you want to ask any questions, just make sure to unmute yourself first. I see there's some text that people typed. Oh, I see Matthew is here answering people on the questions in chat. Does anyone have any questions, or maybe unmute yourself? Okay, well, I guess no one has any questions. So so I've recorded the webinar. We don't have any documentation on the gateway as of yet. It's one of the things that we're planning on working on this year. But I can upload this video just to reference in case there's anything that you didn't understand when I was going over it. And I will send out the link to where the video is uploaded. But otherwise, if you have any questions later on, let's see. So you can email help@calsurv.org, and that will that goes to all of us here at CalSurv. So someone will get back to you. Generally, it'll be me. Otherwise, my phone number is 530-752-8380. And I work, I'm usually here on an Eastern time zone friendly schedule. So feel free to give me a call if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can shoot us an email and let us know. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.